Good evening, everyone. Jai Hind. Jai Hind. Thank you. It's a wonderful evening. First of all, I thank the team who has been putting in almost 2 to 3 weeks of effort in organizing this wonderful event. And I welcome and thank all the respective panelists who have been here, who will share their experience and their thoughts on a very, very important subject called the geopolitics and the national security aspect of it. So, in the interest of the audience, should it be in Tamil, English or Taminglish? Okay, both. Thank you. So, Dev sir would be like, I'll keep him engaged as well. Intermittently, we'll keep switching the channels. ஸோ அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம், ஜெய்ஹிந்த். இன்றைக்கி நம்ம பேசக்கூடிய மிக முக்கியமான டாபிக், the topic of the day is Sri Lanka. So when we think of the country as such, and we look at the map of India, there is 99% of the population would say Delhi is in the top and Kanyakumari is in the bottom of the country, and this is where the country ends. The country starts in Himalayas and ends in Kanyakumari, right? But if you actually see how the world evolved, if you go and look back your geological lessons, the country starts from Kanyakumari and ends in Himalayas. The great Chola Empire, who had the most mightiest navies in those times. If you look at Chola's empire and the way they have been dominating the Indian Ocean region, right from Bay of Bengal all the way till Malacca Straits to Cambodia. So why didn't they move northwards and or move north and northeastwards? They wanted to rule the ocean, and they were one of the most richest economy of those times. I mean, when we have a GDP figure today, if you look at the kind of trade they had, they really ruled the world. So there's one part of the world called China, which was producing a lot of textiles, and then other part of the world, which is Middle East, which was thriving well in their own economy. The trade route was actually crossing the Indian Ocean region. So Cholas basically provided security for all those ships from the pirates, and they earned taxes. That's how the chunk of Chola's income came in. And those who were not ready to pay those taxes, the transit taxes, they were raided. And we speak a lot about, today we speak about amphibious operations, marine commandos, so it was started way back in Chola's time. So they didn't add the so-called gunpowder, to propel in things like what we see in kinetic warfare. So those days, one Chola literature, which is available in a library close to this place, it's a pure transcript. It took me a lot of time and effort to actually decipher it. What it said is, they need deep sea drivers, and Cholas were basically based in the Kaveri river. The culture started there. So it's a fresh water. So to train the deep sea drivers who will go and break the pirate ship, or who can go and attack an enemy ship or a ship which doesn't pay taxes, they had a lot of sea salt put in a part of Kaveri in Tanjore. They made a small pond kind of a thing, and that's where those deep sea divers went and took practice. They went in, they were holding the breath, a lot of practices was done. So the science of building up a ship, right from what wood, where it will come from, how it has to be chopped, when the tree has to be cut, how the tree has to be seasoned, and how to build a ship without using a nail, an iron nail. This was the level of expertise which Cholas bring in. So why I touched upon Cholas is, the Indian Ocean region, if we don't dominate, that's our key vital trade route. That's point number one. And we have a coastline of excess of 6,000 kilometers. One, we need to guard those coastline. We see what happened in 2611 in Mumbai. Second, we need to secure our trade routes. When we say we are going to move to a place like the second largest economy in the world in down next 20, 30 years, unless we secure our trade routes, we can manufacture, we can speak about Atmanirbhar Bharat, we can become a manufacturing hub, but if the trade routes are not secured, we are not going to win the game. So it is very, very imminent for us to dominate the Indian Ocean region. The present government had put in ample amount of efforts, which we'll talk in detail. So the ship carrier which we saw, a 45,000 ton aircraft carrier, what we saw is part of this strategy, is to dominate that region, which is starting from Bay of Bengal, going all the way till Malacca Straits, and on the other end going all the way till Africa. So that's how trade routes has to be secured. Now comes Sri Lanka. In this entire Indian Ocean region, the small tiny island plays a very, very important role. British tried to dominate it. Cholas dominated it. If you keep on reading the history for the last 2,000, 3,000 years, every power which wanted to dominate the world wanted to dominate Sri Lanka first. So that becomes vital for us in terms of national security. Now, unfortunately, since our independence, the most messed up foreign policy which India had ever done was Sri Lanka. It is most complicated one. People, even after 50 years of studying it, still don't have a fair understanding of what it is. நமக்கு ஒன்றும் புரியல ஆக்சுவலாக. ஸ்ரீலங்கா அப்படின்னா எல்லாருமே என்ன நினச்சிக்குவோம், அங்கே ஈழத்தமிழர்கள் இருக்காங்க, சிங்களீஸ் இருக்காங்க, புத்திசம் டாமினேஷன் இருக்காங்க, ஸோ அங்கே ஃபைட் பண்ணுறாங்க. தெர் இஸ் அ சிவில் வார் விச் வெண்ட் ஆன் ஃபார் 30 years. And then India went in, the IPK forces went in, we came back, one of our prime minister got assassinated, later that organization was banned, and eventually it came to an end in 2009. Now things are all okay. It doesn't work that way. To give you a perspective, a broader perspective of what Sri Lanka means, it has a very, very strong cultural and religious connect with India. Buddhism went from here. Hinduism went from here. Even the Islam, what you see today, the Muslims also inherited that religion from India. So they have a very, very strong connect with us, and they have a very cultural rivalry with us. If you look at, I'll give you an example how Sinhalese see us as a country, as this thing. So Sinhalese see India as Hindus. It's a Hindu country. Like the way Pakistanis always say it's Hindustan. They never call it as India, right? So when we look them, there was one infamous assassination attempt on then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. If you would have seen those videos, one naval soldier of Sri Lankan Navy, he tried hitting a Prime Minister on head. Today, the highest fan follower of a Sri Lankan origin, except the movies, highest fan following for an individual is to this particular soldier who has been released out of jail. You can go to Facebook, check his Facebook profile. So, just imagine the amount of hate which has been nurtured and cultured over a period of time. They are not as big as what we call Pakistan or Bangladesh. So, they don't have a direct confrontation with us. But that hate on Hindus especially, it simmers. It doesn't surface much, it simmers. But they are smart people, they are into trade, they are well educated. All their 5 major parameters in terms of education, healthcare, number of schools per 1,000, in every 5 parameters, they exceed India way beyond and above. They are very, very forward-thinking country. But when we look at a country and when we define a strategy, your foreign policy, we specifically need to know who likes me and who doesn't like me. So that's why I touched upon this point. Now another set of people is what ethnic, cultural connect and ethnic connect we have is the Tamil population there. When we say Tamil population, it's always, if you see the narrative which has been set for over 50 years, it's always Eelat Tamilargal, the Tamil Eelams. But there are sizable amount of Tamil people who went from Tanjore, who went from Tiruvarur, who went from Ooty, the then Nilgiris, and who went from various parts of Tamil Nadu to those tea estates during British time, which is like 300 plus years now. they will never speak about this particular population. So when we say the Elam Tamils have been treated as a second grade citizens, this community, Tamil community, was treated as a third rated citizens. So there are Sinhalese who are progressive thinking, who are trade and culture and progressive parameters. We want to evolve, we want to become culturally strong, we want to become economically strong. And there is a very, very, very strong Buddhist, religious centric organizations in there. So most of these politicians have to have this endorsement of the Buddha Bhikshus, we call them, right? So they need to have the tick if I have to win an election. So the domestic policies, the domestic politics always goes hand in hand with this particular set of religious, or we don't call it as fundamentals, but they are strongly religious. Then comes the Elam Tamils. So we classify them into one bucket. They are actually not one. There are three. People from north, all we call as Vaunia and all these places, they are different. People from east, they are quite different. And the diaspora, the Sri Lankan diaspora, especially the Tamil diaspora in Europe and UK, Europe and Canada and USA, they are very, very strong. Their thought process is totally different. And then we have a sizable amount of Muslims. Their thought process is totally different. I happened to get trained with a couple of Sri Lankan officers. I had interacted with them in brief. So they all were in the same army. I had one Tamil officer who comes from that Malayagam Tamils, people who came here. So he was an army officer who was there with me. His thought process was totally different. A Sinhalese army officer's thought process was totally different. And a Muslim officer of Sri Lankan army. All these three didn't sync. So when we say it's a country united, no, it's still not. It's still evolving. And if you look at the democratic parameter, Jananayagam பார்த்துட்டு நம்ம ஜனநாயகத்தில் எந்த இடத்துல அவங்க இருக்காங்க, it's called as a pseudo democracy. It's not a full democracy. So the country is not one. First of all, we need to look at the country is not one. So in the past, our policy makers, starting from Pandit Nehru's time, and then we had a major breakthrough, a policy change during Indira Gandhi's time. We saw this entire nation as one. That's our first mistake. We never understood their realities, they never understood the complexities of that particular nation. Second, we thought it's a state, one of the state of India. We treated them like you are just a small state of India. When we look at Pakistan, my seniors will speak in detail about it. So what does Pakistan has in its hands? Nothing but the location. It's all about the location, how well suitably strategically I am placed. There is one Soviet bloc, there is one American bloc. So in between I am placed here, so I need to restrict Soviet from coming down. So equally, Sri Lanka is a very, very strategically located location, geopolitically. But we ended up seeing it somebody thought it as a state. So we went and then we created a militant movement. We supported them, we armed them. LTT was our own baby. They were trained in Chakrata ahead of Dehradun. We extensively supplied arms and ammunition. We provided logistics. Everything went well. The first Elam war happened between LTT and the Sri Lankan government. Then they took a massive lead. Now, there is a political scenario there where the suppressed community looks at a leader. Now, I have got my leader. Whether he is political or whether he is an armed leader. Political solutions take a lot of time. So I always prefer to go to a leader who's leading me with arms. And somebody who has closely studied LTT knows they were one of the most disciplined and I would say the brutal laws applicable force of those times. They were literally brutal in terms of the discipline. The cadets cannot get married. They cannot fall in any of the human emotions like love and all this. They cannot go into any form of drugs, and they cannot go into alcohol. They have a very, very specific way of getting trained, and they were a very, very motivated force. So this thing went on. Later, we had couple of coalition governments. Later, when Rajiv Gandhi came in, so he wanted to establish himself as a leader. When we say today, our Prime Minister Modi as Vishwaguru, a lot of followers say he's a Vishwaguru, the world leader. I'm the guru of the world. I can solve things. It took more than 50 years of public life, 13 plus years as Chief Minister, 8 plus years as Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy. Even now, we have not reached that place. But Rajiv Gandhi, unfortunately, with all the new set of people he had, he said, this is the right opportunity for me to project myself as, as a world leader. So I need to influence the SAARC nations, out of which Bangladesh was already done and dusted. So my point is, I'll do some magic wand, I'll do something, solve this so-called problem which has been running on for 70 years. This is quoted in one of a book, in one of our autobiography. I'll give you the link later. But the problem is, nobody understood this is not a problem which started post-British. Like Sai Deepak keeps on deciphering that what we see today is not the post-47 phenomena. It's been going on for years. We see it in that way. That's how histories have been written. Similarly, here also, we devised our foreign policy. One day, Rao was told, pick up the LTT leader Prabhakaran, get him to Delhi, and an accord has to be signed between India and Sri Lanka. Now imagine, there is a conflict between two groups in one nation, and then the third nation wants to intervene. The leader sums them up, கூப்பிட்டு வச்சுட்டு எல்லாரையும் வச்சுட்டு சொல்கிறோம், நானும் இவரும் ஒப்பந்தம் போட்டுக்கிறோம், அதுக்கு நீங்கள் ஒத்துக்கணும். The problem is actually between A and B. C and B signs an agreement between Jayawardene and Rajiv Gandhi, saying that this is the right solution. So LTT was supposed to disarm. 13th amendment of the constitution, 13 alpha, 13A amendment has to be done, which in a simpler terms to be put, one central government controls the entire Sri Lanka, out of which the Tamil said, no, we need or have our own provincial rights. They call it as a province, nothing but a state. So state should have its own law and order, revenue, so and so, the way each one of a state in India has been done. The solution offered was something like a union territory. All said fine, but we will put a governor there. He will govern you. The laws applicable by the center is applicable to you. That is how it has to be. So the negotiated term should have been something like a Delhi. It's neither a state nor a union territory. Still state controls a lot of stuff. So that was also not done. So they went back. Indian forces were sent as peacekeeping forces. One of the veteran officer could tell you what weapons we carried to Sri Lanka. We were told that it's a very, very minor force. You just have to hang around there. Nothing is going to happen. Disarm LTT, make them they surrender the weapons, get them to the political table. Whatever which was signed between Rajiv Gandhi and Jayawardene is the end of story. So later, when they went for a surrender, they were killed by Sri Lanka. Something went wrong. LTT picked up the weapons, and then Prime Minister saw a very, very nice opportunity there. It was propelled. There was a back channel talk between Pakistan and Sri Lanka at those times. How many of you know that India-Pak war in 1971, the Pakistani Air Force was landing in Sri Lanka. They were refueling and then were going to Dhaka. So they were not so friends as we think that, today's every media says that, they are very good friends. They were never. So at this point of time, we went to ensure peace, and we ended up fighting LTT. When we ended up fighting LTT, the picture was so bad. I happened to speak to one of officer who served in IPKF, a young major, now a very senior veteran who settled in Bangalore. He said after the IPKF forces were withdrawn, so the place where they landed up is Chennai. then Madras. When they came out of the port from the ship and they went all the way till the central railway station to go to the respective places on either on leave or on this thing, they were abused as rapists, they were abused as murderers, they were abused as thieves, and they were abused in possibly the worst form of, galis in Tamil. No other nation had ever welcomed their soldiers with this. This will kill a soldier. You don't have to shoot him. It literally kills a soldier. A soldier fights on the orders of the government of the day. It's an institution which comes under the government, elected government. For whatever reasons, the local politics got so messed up, so the entire thing went for a 6. Then later we know what happened with Rajiv Gandhi. He was assassinated in the very same Chennai. Lot of political happenings happened here. Then we summed up in 2009, 10 years of UPA rule. That's possibly the maximum mess you would have ever created. Any simple logic. Either I be with this party, I win his loyalty, I hold with him, at least he stands for me. So now we are in a situation, the Sinhalese doesn't trust us, they hate us. Plain, period, simple. The Tamils don't trust us. The Malayalam Tamils, the third sect of people, they say it's better to coexist with whatever little rights I have got. So they are kind of co-living with Sinhalese in south of Sri Lanka. நமக்கு இப்போ யாருமே ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் கிடையாது, எல்லாருமே எனிமீஸ். ஸோ திஸ் இஸ் அ கிளாசிக்கல் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஆஃப் taking a sword and fighting, and then you end up hitting everybody. It's like that, the mass wrestlers come in WWF and then something happens, everybody punches everybody. That's what we precisely did. This was supposed to be our foreign policy. So we aided in the final war. By then LTT was branded as it was declared as a terrorist organization, and the war came to a brutal end. Now, as a responsible nation, when we say we are the first responder in terms of natural calamity, tsunami, anything, even now we had sent our vaccines and medical aid and whatnot. The 3 lakh people, 2.5 lakhs to 3 lakh is the rough estimate of people who were killed in that war. Those people should have been saved. If we would have made an attempt to do that, we would have been in a very, very dominating position today. Lot of things cannot be undone. I keep talking to my Sri Lankan Tamils, people who are involved in this decision making and all, I keep telling that, if I refer Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, see, you killed my Prime Minister. Then a step before they will say, IPKF, you entered my country, you killed our people, so what do you expect us to do? Then we further go. Then we say, no, we only created you. Then this never-ending argument continues. So coming to the present, the Chinese domination was started way back in 2014 and 15. 2005 and 6, peaked up in 2015. Right? And then by then Rajapaksa was very strong because he cleansed this entire thing. The civil war came to an end. He seemed to be a mass hero. So then we had one family rule. The Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Kotabaya Rajapaksas, and there are a lot of Rajapaksas. Their cabinet decisions were taken on a dining table. One of the senior most bureaucrat of Sri Lanka told me this. So this guy, when they started ruling, they said, okay, now it's time for us to teach India what we mean. What importance I have got. நான் எவ்வளோ முக்கியம் அப்படின்னு நான் காமிக்கணும். அப்போது நான் எதிரி நண்பனாக தான் பார்ப்பேன். ஸோ ஐ வென்ட் டு சைனா. ஸோ வி டுக் அம்பன்தோட்டா போர்ட். The Ambantota port was initially offered to India. How many of you know this? It was offered to India when Manmohan Singh ji was our Prime Minister. We didn't take. He said, no, we are not interested with the terms of the agreement. We lost one major railway contract. The Indian Railways lost a major railway contract for one simple reason. We were not able to file the tender on time. Can you believe this? A country where you need to put in your influence, where your number one enemy is influencing the place so much, with so much of money and power. When something like a railway critical strategic infrastructure comes up, நம்ம என்ன சொன்னோம்னா கொஞ்சம் டைம் வேணும், எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் பண்ணுங்கள் கான்ட்ராக்டை, டைம் வேணும். மூணாவது டைம் அவன் சொன்னால் டைம்லாம் கொடுத்தாச்சு, நீங்கள் ரேட்டை கூடியா முதல்லன்ட்டு. I'm making it simpler. So we couldn't do anything. So the Chinese domination went on and on. To an extent, there are places, almost 50-60% of signboards in Colombo. Today, there is Sinhalese official language, Tamil official language, English, and there is Mandarin. It has gone to that level. Now, what happens is, when we see border, we always imagine Kashmir, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, Wagah border, everybody salutes. And to the east of us, Arunachal Pradesh, all the way till Leh Ladakh, this is our border. How much time it takes for a speedboat from Rameshwaram to reach Sri Lanka? Anyone? Students, Defense Department. Less than 30 minutes. So our enemy is as close as 30 kilometers from Tamil Nadu. From Sri Lanka, our strategic assets, the nuclear power plant of Kudangulam, or even what we see in Kalpakkam, they don't have to deploy any major high-end missiles. We are just closer to, inviting disaster is one. So Himalayas, we cannot change the terrain. Nothing can be done. It's the way the nature has given us. But as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we are dominating, because if at all Chinese Navy has to do something in Sri Lanka, their mainland and here, it's quite far away. We are quite dominating. It's just hardly a stone throw away distance. We are away from Sri Lanka. But we slowly we started giving away our presence. One example I'll tell you, how domestic politics, regional factionalism, secessionist thoughts can kill a country's foreign policy. Classical example I'll tell you. Few years before, I think when Madam Jayalalitha was the Chief Minister, there was a protest by Mr. Seeman, a party leader of a party called Nam Tamizhar Katchi, NTK, right? They said the Sri Lankan army officers who come here for training, we have a staff college, Defense Services Staff College in Wellington, OT, where it's like a management course of an tri-services, Army, Navy and Air Force. All the generals and the senior people has to mandatorily undergo. It's a very, very competitive one. So even the Sri Lankan officers, we used to train them. Now this guy said, no, they have killed us, you should not train them. They did some ruckus. Now those officers are getting trained in Pakistan Military Academy. So what it makes? A military academy is a place where it's not just about a military training. It's where you inherit a culture. It's where you inherit a soldiering. When OTA, if you come and see in Chennai, if you see, look at officers come from Bhutan, officers come from all the way from Papua New Guinea, people come from Burma, Thailand. All those officers who get trained, the men and the women who get trained, say Jai Hind. They eat our food. They follow our rituals. They say Jai Shri Ram. Everything what Indian Army does, they do. So when they go back, when they raise up their ranks and one of them becomes the generals and the chief, it becomes easier for us to have that relationship. Now instances like this, we have broken it. Now we also mixed up with all these complexities which we created for our own self. Now comes the Tamil Nadu politics. So one of the DKs, the ADMK and the DMK, one of them will support, the other one will oppose. Now alternatively the other one will support, this one will oppose. So there was a time one of our chief minister was given Z security because of threat from LTT. And after 5 years, she himself was supporting. Okay, Tamilagathil ilai malandal, Ilangayil Ilam Malarum. Very, such a sweet language. We can just crystallize it, communicate it so much. I give, a bit of dose to you. You can all start crying. ரொம்ப ஈஸியாக தமிழ் அவ்வளோ ஒரு பியூட்டிஃபுல்லான ஒரு லாங்குவேஜ். நம்ம ரொம்ப அழகாக இன்னைக்கு அப்படியே ஒரு கோட் கொடுத்து நான் பேசினேன் அப்படின்னா அழ வைக்க முடியும், சிரிக்க வைக்க முடியும். யார் என்னன்னே தெரியாமல் நம்ம அழுதுகிட்டு இருப்போம். தட்ஸ் வாட் ஹேப்பன். 2009, when this civilian killings happened, LTT, they took arms, they have to face the battle, the outcome of the battle, no doubts, it's soldiering. But when the people got killed, none of these parties could do anything. At this time, we had DMK in the government, not only in the state, they are also in the center. They couldn't stop it. So we had this, we have what we call that 26 parties coming together, raising hands and forming a government. I pray to best of the gods I know, I trust, such a thing should never happen to us, at least for the next 20 years, because the country is facing such a challenging situation. Today, we are trying to recalibrate the policy. When you say recalibration, it has to start from the beginning. We need to do it. So that's how our Prime Minister landed up in Jaffna, the first Indian Prime Minister to land up in Jaffna. We said, okay, we can't do anything about undo the war and get the people back. What we can do is to rehabilitate them. The first and the foremost thing which is needed for that is to build some houses where people are living in open. So we built around 50,000 houses. We gave direct aids. And the university in Jaffna, Yalpanam, is one of the pride. You should go whenever, if you all plan a trip to Sri Lanka, do visit that university. It's a treasure hunt of our culture. It's a treasure hunt of our culture. You can just keep endlessly seeing where we were. What were the mightiest nation we were at one point of time, at various points in the history. So we helped them rebuild that library. There's a touch to it, right? And then we had scholarship programs. A lot of Sri Lankan students who became orphaned during war, they all come and study in Pondicherry University, in Madras University, a lot of other places. So all these exchanges were done. So we didn't beat the drums that we did this. Edu perisa basically. There is again, Rajapakse's government was thrown off and he blamed RNAW for that. RNAW, the Indian Research and Analysis Wing, is the sole cause for me to lose this election. India influenced our election. I leave it open. Whether we should influence, whether we influenced, it's up to you to decide. But this was the criteria. Then Shri Sena's government came in. We were trying to mend up our ties. Lot of Chinese contracts were put in scrutiny. Lot of it was removed. But by then, they fell into the trap which China has already set, which is nothing but a debt trap. With the current statistics, with best of the economists, if they start repaying the loan with double the amount of taxes, currently we pay 30% income tax, 10 to 30%, then we pay around 18% GST on most of our services we avail, products and services. If we double this, it will take, and with a growth rate of 5% and above GDP, Sri Lanka will take minimum a century to repay the Chinese loan, which clearly means they cannot repay the loan. Now what if you don't repay the loan? The lender is going to say, I'm going to take your property. Right? You go for a home loan, you default your EMI for 3 months, the guy is going to say, leave your house and I'm going to take your house and auction it. Similarly, that's what happened in Ambantota, 19 years of lease. 19 years is good enough period. The Chinese have completely dominated it. Certain confidential information, I can't stand in the podium and divert it, but it's quite serious. And Sri Lanka now says, no, we will not let any country use our soil for a military purpose. Now we had a Chinese spy vessel, Yangwang 5, landing up in that port, which was welcomed by Sri Lankan authorities, which could pick up all those things. And in fact, we had to postpone one of our major missile test, which was supposed to take off from Odisha. So that's the kind of threat we have today. So now something has to be done. So the three stakeholders has to be engaged. One is the Sinhalese who runs the government. One is the Sri Lankan Tamils, the Elams, and also the Malayalam Tamils. And there is a strong demographic change which is happening in the coastline. South is already changed. Now north and east, there is a lot of demographic changes which has been done. Funded by Pakistan, funded by China. 3 months before, there was a video. Our media is too busy in covering a lot of things. 4 months before, The locals from Jaffna, a nearby village, they stopped a suspicious car. Somebody was there in the car. They like moving around in the middle of the night. They stopped and they pulled off the people and then they said, "Yarin paakalam" abdin solite. The guy who was sitting inside was a Pakistani ambassador to Sri Lanka. And there were 5-6 Sri Lankan army personnel who were in the civil clothes. So they just pushed and they roughed off, and then this vehicle was stopped, the video was taken, the face was literally visible. It was a Pakistani ambassador. Now when we all are happy, so happy, Pakistan is gone, Pakistan is down out, they've been begging wheat, blah blah blah. So they are still active. And they are pinching a nerve which is very, very archaic to us. It's very, 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 very close to us. So now what will happen? This is the geopolitical dimension. Now coming to a major problem which Tamil Nadu is going to face, which is already facing, which Punjab, which has been facing for quite some years, is the drug mafia. If we put the entire amount of drugs which was transported from Sri Lanka to India in one basket in these many years, and in another basket, if we put the number of drugs which was confiscated by DRI, by various agencies, in the last 500 days, this is 7 times the size of this entire 75 years of history. Tons and tons of heroin, tons and tons of cocaine. Lot of narco is just not just about ganja. God forbid, we don't have a single infrastructure in the country which can rehabilitate a person who's addicted to heroin or cocaine. It's a reality. Forget about alcohol, ganja and all. I'm talking about there is no infrastructure. It's a one-way journey. If you go, you're on. That's it, and you become a social liability. So we have a serious narco threat coming from Sri Lanka. We have a serious demographical changes. If you keenly observe, right from Odisha till Kanyakumari and all the way till Rana of Kutch, this entire 6,500 km, there is a demographic change which has happened. You don't have to do any research, just do a simple go to a Google map, see, you just zoom into a level, you can see demographic changes, what I mean actually here. If those coastline is also changed and our coastline is also changed, then our Coast Guard has to be increased to a level where we don't have that much of money to spend on our defense. We spend less 2% of our GDP. And we can't keep building aircraft carriers and navy and a mightier navy just to control this. It's better we control them right now. So, today we are in a phase of recalibrating. We are in talks with the Tamils there. We are assuring them the 13th A amendment of their constitution provide them the basic dignities of life, the food security, place to live, unna unavu udukka udai padukka idam. Sorry, மாத்தி சொல்லிட்டேன். உணவு உடுக்க உடை படுக்க இடம். இந்த மூணுமே வந்து அவங்களுக்கு அஷ்யூர் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு தான் we are getting this entire thing now. Our couple of ministers have visited. Our foreign minister Jaishankar has been visiting there very, very frequently. The state BJP president of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Annamalai IPS, is also visiting this. A lot of other visits are planned in the future. Is to start with 13A and move it towards a statehood to secure north and east of Sri Lanka and to make direct investments in those locations and to have a win-win partnership. So you could see lot of things happening in this spectrum. One example is the ship connectivity, passenger ship connectivity between Karaikal and Jaffna. Port connectivity, airport. The 3 more airports are going to come up. So we want to open up the trade. We want to open up the cultural connect. There is a very, very strong cultural connect in terms of Saivam and Malayam. Right? There are two things. You go to that places. We have a lot of temples which are like still not being taken care. So we need to revive it. We need to assure them a promising life for their future, for their children. And in return, we need to secure our very important geopolitical border. which is the India and Sri Lankan this thing. Second, why we are just hurrying up in this is the right time. $3 billion plus of credit line extension. $3 billion the government has to listen. When we say fishermen, why are we not doing about anything? When we go for a geopolitical negotiations, when the foreign minister goes and speaks to them, there is no emotions. Disconnect emotions from your policy making. We have been made fools. We have been made fools for these many years, mixing up these emotions. In the end of the day, we ended up did nothing. We ended up doing nothing for them. Either it benefited us, nor it benefited them. So today we are in a place of where we are going to give them the life, a bare minimum guarantee of a statehood with limited provincials, but not quote unquote, not a separate country. That's a distant dream. In today's world, there is no way that a country can go in and walk into another country and carve a different country out of it. That's not possible. So we're going to do that. We're equally going to engage with Sinhalese. So we do have a cultural connect, I said. It's not that all of them are against us. We need to slowly change their mindset. They have realized what a family rule, a dynasty rule in a modern democracy can do. That's the best example. We don't have to look left, right, out and center. Just look at what Rajapakshes and families have done to them. That senior bureaucrat whom I was quoting, I said, is it a joke or is it really happened? He said it really happened. So this guys, 2 years before, there was some sustainability conference which was happening in Norway. So Rajapaksa went and said, see, I'm going to be the first country who is going to go completely organic. The world should learn from me. I'm going to make the entire country organic. Yes, you can make it. It has to have a plan, right? And tomorrow, it's like somebody says that, tomorrow I'm going to have a 6-pack. I need to work. I need to work towards it. So he went back. He said, I committed this. What can be done? So his other family member, who's a minister in charge for that agriculture, he said, we'll stop importing fertilizers. Organic fertilizer. We'll start importing synthetic fertilizers. It does two things to us. One, we will force people to go organic. Second, we will cut down our imports so that we can save our dollars. Wonderful idea, right? So they did this. It was a food surplus country. They ended up destroying the entire agriculture. They couldn't manage the pest because pesticide was stopped. The farmers were already, were doing that. Farming is not an easy business. I'm into farming, I'll tell you, I assure you. So it was so bad. They ended up importing food and they were running short of organic manure. You heard of the famous Chinese ship which came and supplied organic manure. It ended up being a Chinese shit actually. It was not organic manure. So it's a classical example of how a dynasty, a family can actually destroy a nation. So we are into the phase of recalibration. In this, certain dramatics will also come up. What one card which we pulled out from the thing is Prabhakaran alive? He may be or he may not be, but he is a brand in which all these differences will settle down and come together. There's one good friend of me, I cannot name it, he is laughing. I'll take it offline. So the developments which you are seeing today has a very, very little connect with the domestic politics out here. Of course, there is a political angle to it. Anybody will try to reap it, but it is more towards geopolitical connect with Sri Lanka. So I'll end up here. We'll take up the questions. Tinku, should we get up the questions now or the next panelist comes in? Okay, done. Thank you. Thank you, Jai Hind.